Today's topic, which is purpose. Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic and the age-old virus of racism and injustice have put brand purpose through the true test. Purpose has brought out the best in many brands operating across virtually every industry and country. Brands are working with their peers, customers, and communities to give back or provide resources any way they can. Many purpose-driven companies are looking beyond profits and directing their resources to the battle against these issues. And the brands that are emerging as leaders right now are the ones that are solidly rooted in their unique purpose. They know who and what they are and how they can help, because the foundation of their companies guides their actions both in normal times and in times of crisis. This was best stated by Alicia Tillman, the CMO of SAP, at a recent ANA podcast. For those who aren't familiar with SAP, SAP is the market leader in enterprise application software and is wholly grounded on its purpose of helping the world run better and improving lives through innovation. Now, I'm not going to read this quote for you, but in essence, Alicia believes that purpose is not something that you can turn on and off. It's something that should manifest itself every single day, be it in the service that employees provide to their customers or the way in which their products operate. The process of how to authentically activate a brand's purpose is something that the ANA has been exploring for the past few years through our Center for Brand Purpose. If you aren't familiar with it, I encourage you to visit ana.net/brand-purpose, and check it out. It offers education, guidelines, and leadership on purpose. And you'll find easy-to-use playbooks, a podcast series called Beyond Profit, articles, and more. Today, our speaker is Carol Cohn, CEO and founder of Carol Cohn on Purpose, and one of the ANA's partners in a recent first-of-its-kind study called the B2B Purpose Paradox, which explores the state of B2B purpose. Carol will share the study results. She will provide examples of how purpose helped companies lead during the pandemic, and she'll share insights on what should be next for marketers ready to embrace their brand purpose. Some background on Carol Cohn. Carol pioneered the field of social purpose in the 1980s, and today is widely recognized as one of the world's foremost social impact experts. Her work has built global movements, garnered hundreds of awards, and raised billions of dollars for a variety of worthy causes. I'm so thrilled to introduce Carol Cohn to you. Carol, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for that really that warm introduction. And when I woke up this morning, I said, what a great day this is going to be, because I get to do two of my favorite things. I get to share with new people, all of you who are members of the ANA, about purpose, and we're going to change these slides as we're talking here. I also get to, we're having a little problem of changing the slide, so Sonia, maybe you can help me and to get to the first slide. And I also got to work with clients today. And for those of you who know me, and Sonia, talked to me as one of the pioneers in the field. I have been doing this work for over 35 years. I started doing it because I grew up in the social justice years of the 60s and 70s, and I also loved marketing and brands. And when I had an opportunity to really bring these two together in the early 80s, nothing has held me back. I could not be more excited than to be able to share with you my insights, to share with you this research. And I'm thrilled that the ANA, when we decided we wanted to explore B2B sectors and purpose, we did some research in the field, and I've done over 20 8 different pieces of research since 1993. We fielded the first one in the field called the Cohen-Roper Report. But most of the research has been done with B2Cs, and that's where a lot of this work has been done. But we kept seeing companies approaching my firm and asking us to do the work. We kept reading articles about manufacturing companies, technology companies, financial service firms, healthcare firms, beginning to embrace purpose to truly energize and activate their colleagues. And so we said, as a firm, who could we work with? Who would be a great partner? We reached out to the ANA. They said, yes, we're on board, because really this research had not been done. And then we also reached out to one of my favorite, if not the best in the world in terms of polling, the Harris Organization. And so we started doing this work last year. The methodology was that we reached out, we pre-selected certain sectors, and we wanted to talk with, this was an online survey, we wanted to work with directors and above, companies that were 500 employees to 20,000 employees, $50 million to about $2 billion plus, in a range of industries. Sonia, I need a little help here because the presentation is frozen and it doesn't go back to the beginning. So if you can get it back to the beginning, that would be one more slide back would be great. Can we go back one more? There we go. Okay, super. All right. So thrilled to be here. We fielded this research. I'm going to get into some of the context, as well as we're going to talk about the research. We're going to share insights, answer your questions. The other thing is, if we don't get to your questions, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We always love to help activate and elevate your purpose. So this is a great day for me. So why don't we get started? Now, people always ask me, Carol, why do you have this fabulous tree that it's the beginning of your research? And I like to explain that you cannot have a tree that's this beautiful and this old, it's a very old tree, without having really deep roots. And that's a great analog for purpose. And by the way, don't get stuck with what you call it. Some people call it just doing good. Some people call it CSR. Some people call it brand purpose or such. The most important point is that you do it authentically. You do it for reasons that are going to grow your business as well as engage with society. But authenticity, as Sonia said in her introduction, is absolutely key today. We live in a transparent world, and I will tell you that millennials, and even more so Gen Z, because I have done some other research recently, Gen Z is looking at who they're going to work with, what are your values, how do they match with their values, how do you make products, sell products, how do you engage with society, and they really are going to either work for, buy from, talk about, advocate for companies that truly, or brands, whether you're in the B2C space, the B2B space, or the B2B, B2C, so that they, as the next generation of consumers, truly will judge you. Yay, for, or against. And millennials, we know today, they are the vast majority in so many companies, such as professional service firms, and they really want companies to act and follow their values. So if you're ever in doubt, think of this beautiful tree and how it has deep roots to be able to grow and last forever. So purpose. There are many definitions of purpose. In the research, we utilize this definition so we could ground everybody coming from the same place. A company's reason for being beyond profits that guides its business growth and impact on society. It's the power of and. Purpose is mainstream today. When I started out, we were, I always say the joke is that we could have been having all the people interested in the topic at a table for 4, maybe 6. Today, there are conferences, there are publications. In fact, this spring, the Harvard Business Review had a special publication called How to Lead with Purpose. It is over 25 articles that they have had in the past, over the last about 8 years, all in one really cute package. It's only about $20 and you can order it online. We actually my firm had the first article on purpose in the Harvard Business Review, but that was in 2003 because we always like to be a little bit ahead of our time. how purpose has now become mainstream. So B2C companies were embracing it. Consumers were beginning to ask for it. But was this going to be about business strategy? It finally turned the corner. I talk about the new zeitgeist. When Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, which is the world's leading asset management company, $7.3 trillion, $7.3 trillion under management. And he came out with this letter that included this comment: without a sense of purpose, no company can achieve its full potential. Where are we going? What is our true north? That is what purpose is about. But if you totally embody it, it has an impact on all your stakeholders. That was when Larry Fink then started talking in 2019, that he kept talking about it's beyond just making profits. It's touching stakeholders, not just shareholders. Then the chorus got louder because the Business Roundtable, which is a national association of only CEOs that are developing and supporting public policy to help business thrive, that this group of CEOs and Tim Cook and Jeff Bezos and Mary Barra from General Motors, they came out with a declaration of purpose and said companies just can't make profits. It's not enough anymore in our transparent society that is shifting, that younger people are making greater demands, that employees are seeking employers that match their values. So they started talking about impacting in an authentic way stakeholders. And then most recently, there's a lot of other research and prognostications and et cetera, but this piece of research from Morning Consult within the last month, Morning Consult asked, what are the 10 most important drivers of CEO performance? And half of them, half related to purpose. This is no longer a nice to do. This is a have to do. And then I love this very simple comment from my friend and colleague in the business, Balaji Ganapate. Balaji I got to know because he is the head of global purpose at Tata Consultancy Services, a $22 billion global company in over 100 countries with almost 500,000 employees, almost 500,000 employees. And they do technology services. That's what's at their core. And some of you might know them because TCS is a sponsor of the New York Marathon. Well, for the past decade at least, companies were saying we must be technology companies, even if they weren't technology companies. If you were in, for example, transportation, you needed technology to drive your business. Well, Balaji says, based on all of their customers and also looking into the business environment, that companies now want to be about purpose. A lovely statement. Purpose is the new technology. And he's a lovely individual. And by the way, we have a podcast, and TCS has been on our podcast. It's called Purpose 360. If you want to learn rapidly about purpose and gain wonderful insights, I suggest there'll be a link at the end of this, but it's easy to find, Purpose 360. And TCS's interview was astounding. It was great. So now let's get into the research. We're first going to ask our first poll question. So we want to know what industry you're in. So if you could fill this out and check off what industry are you in, and we're going to see instantly who's going to respond. What industries? Oh, look at this. Technology and telecom. All right. We've got some people in healthcare and allied industries, financial services. Okay. You're beating it. There's a lot of purpose in the financial services and insurance fields. Okay. Everybody, we're going to close it off. So the great news here is that we have you across the board. So that's great. So now let's find out what the respondents in our research, 65% financial and insurance industries. There's alignment here. And you can see healthcare, professional services, manufacturing, and technology. It's very, very interesting how the technology and telecommunications industries are the laggards because they're basically sold, especially in the B2B world, if you're not going to B2B2C, on features and benefits. Yet today you can see, especially with our largest technology companies, that they need a purpose. Why do they exist beyond profits? To not only guide them, but to, again, attract the best and brightest employees. And we've been seeing, all of us in the media, that there have been actually protests by technology company employees saying, hey, you've got to look at what's happening in society. You've got to look at what's happening in the environment. You've got to look what's happening in the racial justice movement. Listen to those voices of our youth. Excuse me. So what did we find? What were our major findings? Well, we were expecting about 35-40% of respondents to say purpose is either critical or very important to our growth and our success. Lo and behold, 86% said it was important or critical for them. And they said that they had a stated, we call this a stated purpose, because so many had it. But we were really, really confused. So, how could so many say they have a purpose, but we know that the B2B industries and sectors are lagging behind B2C? Well, we had other questions that we developed with the ANA and with Harris, so we could peel back the onion, or if you like artichokes, peel back the artichoke. I might have one for dinner, actually. And we found greater depth. We found that the organizations that were truly aligning and embedding with their purpose, impacting their culture, their operations, their innovation, their recruiting, impacting their retention, as well as impact on society, it only was about 24%. That was the purpose paradox. We have a paradox, which we then have labeled a stated purpose. It's written on the wall, it's written in a report, it's written on the website, but not yet activated. The smaller percentage was activated. So we now want to go to our next poll question. Our next poll question is, where are you on your purpose journey? Is it deeply embedded? Are you just starting out? Are you in the middle? It doesn't matter where you are. The most important point is to know this is a journey. Okay, so let's see where you are in the journey. Okay, well, it looks like it says many of you, like 50%, say you're just starting out to embed into the company. Well, great, because you're listening to this webinar, so you're going to be ahead of your colleagues. And I love, maybe we'll get some questions. We almost have 10% that said we're fully activated, and we've got a third that say we're well along. So that's great. I love that none of them say we haven't defined it yet. So that's great. Let's move on. So now from our respondents in the research, we had 93%, almost 9 out of 10, who said that they're somewhere on the journey, that they're more focused today. That's really good than 3 years ago. And about 4 out of 10 said they're early. So somewhat, it mirrors your response. Now, what were the reasons for our respondents to embrace? Well, terrific. It really helps us to have greater success. The second answer here I love, because I am such a fan. I am constantly talking about, if you talk to me, employees, we know that they are the lifeblood of our businesses. So 3/4 said it supports our employee recruiting, motivates our sales team right on the heels of that, and it shows our values in action. Okay, here's our third poll question. Some of you, 50% of you've started, you're on the journey, but there are many barriers that get in the way. And so we wanted to ask the question of you, what are the barriers that are keeping you from advancing your purpose more rapidly or getting deeper into the journey? Let's take a look. Yeah. Oh, well, these two are really okay. So leadership only focuses on profitability. And okay, is the cost implementing too high? 25%. You donate to some not-for-profits. They don't want to do anymore. Oh, I see the cost is really high. I love these answers. They're changing. Okay, let's close them out. So let's see. Interestingly, your leadership. So I'm glad you're here again because we have the printed. You can print out the research. It's going to be a link online at the end of my webinar. You can get it through the ANA. The first thing I would say to help your leadership is to share with them the research because it's really powerful. The next thing would be to show them some key articles from the Harvard Business Review. So now let's see what our answers were from our respondents. What were the challenges to our respondents? Interestingly, they said, it's more like it's pink washing, it's purpose washing, it's green washing. It feels more like a PR exercise than really deep. It doesn't play a significant role in our competitive set. That to me is an opportunity for winning on purpose. That means you can be a first mover. And when you're a first mover, it gives you a distinct advantage in terms of your industry, the talk about what you're doing as long as it's authentic. So I think that's a positive, not a negative. Lacking capacity, I will tell you that you probably don't have someone in your organization that has a purpose hat on. But if you allow some of your smartest employees and you say, we're going to either advance our journey or we're going to make it work harder, I will tell you that people who do this work within your organization, they'll do it as their second job. They will actually love their overall job more because this is amazing work to do. And the last one about measurement, there are many ways that you can measure this, and we might get into those later. Okay, so how does purpose influence company culture? We asked the overarching question, what are the most important influencers in your company that will help to mold your culture? And I think all of us have heard this commentary that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And today we are in culture wars internally as well as culture wars externally. So we really need to know what we stand for. What are our values and how do we bring them to life? Well, that was the number one answer here. Our values are the most important thing that helps to mold and form and shape our culture. But interestingly, our people and our purpose were basically tied for having an influence on forming an organization's culture. That means that purpose is very, very powerful. And who is driving purpose? Well, it's not a surprise today, whether you're B2C, B2B, B2B, B2C, it's the C-suite. But guess what? It's not just the CEO. And for those of you, if your leadership says, they don't believe in it or they're only following profitability, again, we're seeing new converts. Actually, last week at one of our clients, that's a $2 billion food service company, their CFO was the strongest proponent of social purpose. It made us so happy. So find those champions in the C-suite, whether it's your CEO, CFO, chief of strategy, chief of marketing, even your chief human resource officer. Because again, the war for talent is one of the strongest drivers for purpose in the B2B sectors and such. Now, the number one stakeholder, yay! I'm so excited that it was by a clear margin that employees are our number one stakeholders for us to define and advance our purpose. And interestingly, I love this number. 8 out of 10 said they engaged their employees in creating their purpose. And certainly it provides a huge, when you do it right, it provides palpable pride and fabulous storytelling and engagement. And just, at the base of purpose, which I've seen this over my career of 35 years, it's amazing because it brings out the fullest potential in people. When someone can go to work and your values match the values of the organization, and you are asked to strive forward and to show your humanity internally to each other as well as to society or enhancing the environment, You will be amazed about how this ignites pride, innovation, curiosity, collaboration. I've seen it, and that's why I just love doing work with the ANA, giving these webinars, continually working with companies and helping to advance anybody who basically listen to me. Okay, now here's some secret sauce that we found in our research. We asked Harris to see if they could find a subset of our respondents, and they did. They found a group, and we're calling them believers. We asked the question, if my company was more focused on our purpose, we would be more successful. Do you agree or do you disagree? 21% of B2B employees agreed with this. We call them the believers. We also found that 34% disagreed with this. We call them the doubters. And there still are a lot of doubters of purpose in organizations. That's okay. You're not going to be ubiquitous and have everybody believe, but the believers are your ambassadors. They are the ones that you really focus on to advance your purpose. And I'm going to show you potential outcomes that are astounding when you can identify your believers. Here are the traits of believers. They defend the company in times of crisis. And I'm sorry to tell you that every single company is going to have a challenge somewhere along the line. They recruit others, the best recruits, so when you bring others from a current employee in your company. They buy from other purposeful companies, and they collaborate with colleagues, which is so needed today in our very, very competitive business environment. And also, they provide enhanced customer service. That's what you want. You want to love your customers. Okay, believers say the following, and we gave them various things that they could agree with. Purpose allows us to earn a premium price. If for only one thing, that's why you want to identify your believers. That's why your purpose needs to be authentic. It needs to be embedded because it's going to ignite your believers to help you grow your sales. And you can see it prioritizing our purpose. Believers say it's absolutely helped us to grow. Believers buy from other companies that are also purposeful. So there's an ecosystem of purposeful companies working with other purposeful companies. Well, what we know from other research has to do with that companies that are run better and more purposeful are more profitable companies. They are more in tune with their environmental savings, their impact on society. They are more engaged with innovation. So again, purpose and then igniting your believers, you're going to be in an ecosystem that is much more prideful and empowering and growing. Now, this is one of my favorite slides in all of the research because I love to compare the believers and the questions that we asked and the doubters. The difference in terms of their responses, the point differences, are everywhere from 15 points up to 25 points. But here are the ones that truly knocked my socks off, and they should knock off yours. 25 points difference between doubters and believers on we can get a premium price for our products. 25 points different. 24 points. Guides our decision making. It takes less time to make a decision, especially when you're in a COVID situation. 21 points. It deepens our customer relationships. And tied with that 21 points, it enhances our recruiting. And certainly 15 points, and again, there's lagging in terms of companies engaging with society. But the answers here, believers say that we find a measurable positive change in society, 15 points more than the doubters. Find your believers. So I know you'd love to ask me the question, well, how do I find them? You find them in the various ways. You can find them partnering with your HR colleagues. You can put questions in your ongoing annual survey. You can certainly look at what KPIs are in the reviews of your colleagues. The other thing is that HR can talk to the supervisors because they will know their colleagues who are working harder in customer service, who are recruiting others, who are defending the company, who are helping to command a premium price. Find those believers and grow your business when you have a purpose that is activated and embedded. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shift to COVID-19. COVID-19 was not on our radar when we did this research, but companies that had a clear purpose, that knew their North Star, that they could then more swiftly respond to the pandemic. And what did human companies do? They put their employees first. I call these selfless companies. They practice something called smart generosity. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. These were basically, I'm calling them visionary companies because they collaborated with others. And we saw this so importantly in the vaccine development that's happening today. And certainly the C-suite led by example. Let's take a look at 3 cases. Now, 2 of these are larger than our respondents, but they're certainly best practice companies. And they're not without their warts, too. There is no perfect company. But Microsoft totally focuses on their employees first. And their purpose, empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Their purpose is led by their CEO, Satya Nadella. They are so employee-oriented first. They also have products that are oriented to people of different capabilities. They just take their purpose and they embed it throughout the entire organization. But one of the things they did during COVID, which really caught my attention, was that they provided 12 weeks of additional time for their employees who were parents because they had to become teachers for their children. Google practiced smart generosity. What they did, and this was very, very impressive, they took $800 million in services. It wasn't cash, it was services. But they saw that they wanted to support small businesses, not-for-profits, and health organizations, those groups that truly needed a depth of support during the pandemic at the beginning, the middle, and in the months and likely years ahead. Lineage Logistics. This is a company that's a little under $2 billion. You probably have never heard of them. They are a cold storage logistics company. And what do? They've got giant facilities. And they are the people that help get those wonderful mushrooms from the field and the farmer to the retailer to your plate, so that the mushrooms look just as beautiful as when they came out of the field. Lineage handles 1/3 of the food logistics in the United States and about 1/10 globally. They are amazing. But they have a purpose. It's very simple. They want to utilize innovation to eliminate food waste and feed the world. And I strongly suggest they're an outstanding best practice. They will be coming out in my podcast, Purpose 360, in another week, so you can listen to that. But go to their website. They have fabulous videos. They have wonderful commentary from their CEO, who truly talked a lot during the pandemic. And you can hear their employees, because they use the voice of their employees talking about, they're wearing cold jackets and they're in cold storage and stuff. But they're feeding the world. And one of the things they did, because collaboration is key, is they brought together their customers, their employees, their supply chain, their vendors, all in a virtuous circle of collaboration to help bring 100 million meals to market during the pandemic. Look at their website. Look at their verbiage. They're a fabulous lesson to learn from. Best practices. And what do these companies return? Because, I know you said, my CEO, it's all about profitability. The companies in the first quarter of 2020, as analyzed by Just Capital, another great resource for you, a not-for-profit that truly is data-driven about purposeful companies, helping to reinvent the balance and the elements of capitalism. The companies that focused on serving their workers first, employees first, during COVID-19 had a 7.3% higher return on investment. 7.3% higher return in the stock market. So purpose and the new normal. We're not going to go back to the way it was. I am so sorry to say that. I hope you don't dun me for that, but we're not going back to that. It is a new normal. It is the next normal and such. So what will be your post-COVID, legacy? Well, certainly there's been a lot of commentary and research that said what you did during COVID will be remembered by potential recruits, by communities, by your partners. So let's take a look at lessons learned from the pandemic. We all learned a lot about speed. How can we respond quicker? Companies learned to fill identified gaps. We're all making our businesses much more digital. And interestingly, you can have a global framework, such as the purpose of Lineage Logistics or Microsoft, but it empowers what happens on the ground is local action. But if you're really confused, and I know it's a really confusing time, the simple statement, let your values be your guide. You can't go wrong. If your values are true, they were developed cross-functionally throughout the organization, let them guide you to your actions. So we're nearing the end, but I wanted to share with you what we're seeing as potential social issue areas that you might be able to amplify because you may be working in them right now, or if you're just beginning on your journey, this is what we're seeing for social issues going forward. And I will tell you in a moment also how you begin to identify the process by which you can either elevate your current purpose or you can identify it. But here are the issues. Employee welfare is going to be number one. Your employees, you supported them during the pandemic. Maybe you had to put them on furlough, but if you have a deep purpose, they will come back and they will understand. And so reskilling them, you might be changing their jobs, making sure they've got the right benefits. Healthcare benefits are going to be key. Working from home, a lot of us are not going back to the office. There's going to be a lot more flexibility. And that's going to impact your recruiting because people are going to be ultimately free agents. They don't physically have to be in San Francisco if the office is in San Francisco. So you're going to be competing for the best and the brightest in talent. So that's something to think about, why your purpose needs to be real, how it needs to be deep, how it needs to be engaging. Climate change. Many of the leaders in the world of purpose, Paul Pullman is my favorite. He was the CEO of Unilever for a decade. He says the future is going to be a green economy and all sorts of ways to bring the economy and make it green, huge opportunities in the future. Inequality, the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement for racial equality, is a lot of it's about inequity. In our systems, we must change. We must look at how can we have jobs and make sure that they're shared equally. Housing, better quality housing, addressing health disparities. Personal well-being for all of us is going to be key going forward. Mental health is one of the core issues on the minds of Gen Z. It's third on the mind of millennials. Community resilience, small businesses absolutely need your help. Food insecurity and food waste, absolutely key. I love to end with a statement so you can read it, but I want to talk about that there is a way to find strategically what is your purpose, or how do we elevate or further activate or further embed. A lot of you said you have a stated purpose, but it's not embedded. We have an approach that we developed over 20 years. We call it affectionately P3. That stands for Proven Purpose Process. Proven Purpose Process. And so I'm going to give you some insights into how you can follow your own adaptation of our process. So the first thing is to create a cross-functional team. It's not just people in communications or marketing or innovation or strategy. Bringing together people senior, mid-level in the organization, cross-functional team to actually architect your purpose going forward. You need to conduct interviews, and the interviews should be with core people across your organization at all levels. If you need, and you should get to the manufacturing floor, people in your warehouses per se, that can be done via surveys. Know your objectives. What are we trying to accomplish? Then understand your audiences. What's the priority of audiences that are really important to our business? And what outcomes do we want to have? Then do a landscape analysis. What are your competitors doing in terms of their social purpose? And then ultimately, when you start refining your purpose or deciding it's going to be about food waste, it's going to be about logistics, might be about STEM education, then analyze what are other companies in your industry are not doing in STEM education. Identify your resources, the people that can work on it. You've got tremendous resources that don't cost more in your people. Give them time off for skilled volunteerism, not just painting a fence. That's volunteerism. That's unskilled, but skilled volunteerism. You also have capabilities that you can share with others. You also have funds. You may be donating to current not-for-profits. You might want to narrow down your focus and focus on STEM or education or community development. You also should, in your interviews, you're going to start learning about how-tos. We call them criteria. What must our purpose fulfill? What's the geography it should impact? What should be the breadth of it? How disruptive should it be? You then also should determine a timeline. And it's also important, we always feel, to set measurement criteria and then ultimately try a pilot. It doesn't have to be the whole country. It shouldn't be the whole world. You can try it in one geography. You can try it in one group of your manufacturing settings, in one local community. So I share with you some of our best practices from the P3 process because there is a way to strategically analyze, frame, identify what is your issue that's going to support your company, and then how do you bring it to life. So again, you see this Harvard Business Review statement: purpose-driven companies make more money, have more engaged employees, more loyal customers, and are better at innovation and transformational change. Purpose is no longer a nice to do. It is a have to do. So I want to thank you for sticking with us and listening. I also want to, I'm going to take some questions now. And also, again, here's a list of resources from our newsletter to our podcast. And, you know, there's just so many great resources out there. And purpose, again, it will energize and it will drive your business forward. And when you identify it and you activate it, not just stated, but activated, you will have profound results. Thank you.
That was terrific, Carol. Thank you so much. You did a really great job. We've got some time for questions, and we will get to those shortly. And just a reminder to everybody, just use the Q&A box on your right to submit your questions, and we will get to them. So, Carol, I really liked, definitely liked the whole presentation, but your last two slides about resetting and rebuilding. You know, you just provided some really good future forward insights on what companies can be focusing on moving forward and some of the issues. So thank you for that. And then also your best practices, all of those steps about how to go about starting, so to say, on a purpose journey. So that being said, what would you say are the 5 most important principles to consider when developing purpose at a company?
Sure. I would say always think about authenticity. It's a word that's overused today. And, you know, don't get engaged with purpose if you just think, oh, it's the cool thing to do. It needs to be authentic. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is know where you want to go. What are your objectives? Why are you doing this? And again, it goes back to some of the best practices I gave you. Certainly create a cross-functional team to develop this, and listening and doing research at all levels of the organization is absolutely critical. Who do you want to impact in terms of audiences? Some people say everyone. It's not everyone. Many companies, when you start really looking at this strategically, they're going to say, we want to be an employer of choice. I hear that again and again and again. So what are your objectives, and then what audiences? And if it's, we want to recruit, we want to appeal to Gen Z, and then millennials. And so what are the audiences, and what are the outcomes that you want? And then lastly, you need to have partnerships. Companies that want to take their expertise and they want to drill down into some social issue, they're not experts. We work with PNC Bank, and their CEO truly wanted to they were doing lots of things in the community. They wanted to have a deeper relationship with their employees, but it was scattershot. And so he wanted to be focused. And so I think my last point is going to be focus is your friend. And so that's a really good one. And you're not going to forget that.
Absolutely. Yes. And I know that you mentioned, kind of having a company that knows its objectives, knows what sort of outcome it's looking for. Can you comment on or provide any insights on companies that are looking for actual metrics or ROI? Like how would they start thinking about that?
Well, there's lots of ways. First of all, what gets measured gets done. And purpose today is measured exceptionally. There are many ways to do it. And you need to set measures ahead of time. So there's net promoter scores. There's customer feedback. I know that Unilever, and they're mostly a B2C, they do have B2B business, but Unilever, one of their core measures is the rankings that they have in LinkedIn. And they are so proud that they are the #1 most requested employer choice in 50 countries around the globe for packaged goods. So that's another way to measure it. You can do it via baselines. So what's your employee engagement and then you should check that out on an ongoing basis. You can also look at it in terms of sales. You can also look at it in terms of your customer relationships. There's a lot of opportunity in terms of purpose work for customer teaming on special projects.
That's great. Thank you. Here's another question. Do you believe that a company's purpose should evolve over time, or should it be set in stone?
Since we've worked with companies, and again, I'll bring up PNC as an example, we started working with them in 2004. Again, their CEO, Jim Rohr, really wanted to be focused and wanted to have an impact on their communities and their employees. And I am very proud to say that 15 years later, they continue to support early childhood education. Their initiative's called PNC Grow Up Great, but it evolves over time. The best purpose initiatives have a framework. Think of it as a large umbrella. And it's broad. It's like Lineage Logistics. They want to take innovation to eliminate food waste, and feed the world. That is their focused umbrella. But underneath it, then they can work with different partners. They can work on different programs in different geographies around the world. And over the years, as the issue advances and their resources and capabilities evolve, they can apply those into society. They're very, very focused as a company on innovation. Their core employee base are engineers. Very, very, very interesting. It's a great company.
That's awesome. Okay, so that seems to be it for the questions. Carol, do you have any last words for our attendees before we leave you?
Sure. I would say that purpose is about business strategy. I've spent over 35 years, and for the first 25, it was siloed, and it didn't have this integration capability. In many situations, especially the B2B world, purpose is the first time that cross-functional teams have worked together on one overarching goal besides being profitable and growing. So it is a powerful way to knit disparate teams together for tremendous impact. It also unleashes special parts of people, because people want to be purposeful in their jobs. And this is about helping people reach their full potential. And then lastly, when you do this, Find somebody who's objective to guide you. Whether it's a firm like ourselves, whether it's someone that maybe that they're a retiree that you want to bring back, maybe it's someone that you've worked with in terms of the past. This is not about being driven, and it's kind of a watch out. It's not being driven by a PR firm or an ad agency. That's not what you want. This is about business strategy. So find an objective guide. But just in closing, I will say the journey is so exciting. There are times along the journey, I'd always say this to clients, you're going into the forest. You're going to get lost. You're going to go up the hills and down the hills and across the river. You may even stumble. You may skin your knee. But ultimately, you're going to come out of the forest and you're going to find a place it's a little bit like the Wizard of Oz. But you're going to find a place that is so right for your organization, so right for your stakeholders, so right for your engagement beyond just making a profit, that makes coming to work a joy, a challenge, but so energizing. So I trust that all of you on your purpose journey who joined us today, thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Keep reading, keep learning, and know that this truly will help to grow yourselves personally, your business, as well as have a positive impact on society and the environment.